Hello and welcome to the 3D Blu-ray bunker, or 3D Blu-ray bunker of the dead, as I'm obviously going to call it this time. This is a place for us die-hard fans of 3D, where I look exclusively at 3D Blu-rays, not to do a movie review, but to focus almost entirely on the film's 3D, with just a short word at the end about the film itself. And this time I'm looking at the 2015 film Bunker of the Dead. This has an aspect ratio of 2.35 to 1, at least that's what it says on the box, but it played on my setups much wider at something like about 2.6 to 1. It's a very low budget movie and it's German, which might lead to fears of it being some sort of horrible auto conversion, but it's actually shot in native 3D. The most significant thing to know about this film is that it's almost completely shot in first-person view. In many ways, that could be thought of as a very natural fit for 3D, but it does come with some problems. As well as being from a first-person viewpoint, and you're probably well ahead of me on this one, it's also mostly set in a bunker. What that means is that there are an awful lot of shots like this, the guy wandering around with a gun in his hand. And the other significant thing to know about this film is that the 3D is strong. Unlike the majority of films from the modern 3D era, this 3D is very strong for its entire running time, and these views have huge amounts of depth to them, far beyond anything like normal human vision. By way of example, there's a load of depth in faces, so much that they're basically distorted with a highly exaggerated distance being created from the tip of the nose to the back of the head. The dimension in his face here is even surpassed by how far in front of his head his hair appears to be. In 2D here, it pretty much looks like his hair's almost stuck to his forehead. It's probably sitting just a little way in front of it, but in the wild 3D that they've used in the film, it feels like it's a ludicrous distance from his face. Now, I love super strong 3D as much as anyone, but this is a film that you might need a strong stomach for, and not just because of the zombies and blood, but because of the strength of the 3D. I know that might sound a bit hyperbolic, like the kind of thing a salesman might come up with to make this sound amazing, but the truth is, it's not difficult to film in strong 3D, it's just that most stereo filmmakers would steer clear of being dialed up to 11 like this the whole time. The location here is actually pretty good for 3D, and the place is quite atmospheric, a derelict place with lots of pipes and tubes and cubby holes, steps and doors and various grimy places that really do help sell the feeling of being in some decaying old bunker. And the 3D is definitely a good tool for heightening the feel of this place. And this obviously looks an awful lot like a first-person video game, which maybe could contribute to any potential discomfort you might feel whilst watching it, because these are views that you'd normally have control over in Wolfenstein or whatever, but here you're just a passenger, and there are definitely times where I'd want to ease off on the joystick and take a bit of a breather. The guy usually has an arm out in front of him, often with the display attached to his forearm visible, or more usually a weapon of one sort or another, sometimes a rifle, sometimes a pistol. Again, you sort of feel like you want to smash the shoulder button or whatever to change weapons sometimes. It also works the other way around, with the odd weapon being held out towards him, like a big long knife here being thrust out at us. Now, we're a long way from Hollywood here, and if you're picturing a stereo camera rig like the kind of thing you've seen James Cameron running around with, you might be over-imagining the quality of this one, but I'll get onto that in a bit. So, if you enjoy very strong 3D, you'll appreciate the depth in the cabin of the car here, looking nothing whatsoever like the view you actually get sitting in a car, or the pistol being thrust right into your face in this view. And whilst that tells you quite a bit about the style of 3D these filmmakers are using, there's a top-down, down-top shot which is maybe a bit more telling. In case there was any doubt, this isn't a serious film, which is something else you probably gleaned from this view. Maybe more relevantly, you can see from these shots very clearly what sort of lenses are being used. So when I say we're a long way from Hollywood, and that the Cameron Pace 3D rig isn't the type of camera that was used to shoot this film, that's because the fisheye lenses that are being used are the ones you'd find on an action cam, and it's a pair of these little cameras that were used to shoot the whole film. On the behind-the-scenes footage on the Blu-ray, you get to see the camera setup, which is basically a Met bicycle helmet with a couple of side-by-side GoPros attached to it. Hence, the lead actor, Patrick Jans, is also the credited cameraman. Then again, he's also credited as a stuntman and associate producer, which I guess is another indication of the film's budget. And by the way, for anyone wanting to try 3D photography on the cheap, a great way to have a go is with a pair of GoPro knockoffs. The ones that come with a little remote control, so you can fire them simultaneously. I've done it quite a lot, and you can instantly get some results with 3D far stronger than you'll see in most films. Anyway, the native 3D here does something that only native 3D can do, and that's to show trees and branches and leaves all in super clear, distinct and separate 3D space in a way that a $100,000 per minute conversion couldn't hope to achieve. And to me, that's so pleasing. You can literally achieve a result for about 50 quid that's superior to one of Marvel's mega budget conversions. And just to be clear, I don't mean to suggest for 1 second that Bunker of the Dead is a better film than Captain Marvel, although some people might disagree there, but just that things like foliage look superior in native 3D. When I mentioned the point of view style of shooting being a bit like a natural fit for 3D, but that it also has problems associated with it, the big problem is that POV can be a bit on the shaky side. So with POV's potential for motion sickness even in 2D, couple that with 3D and the shaky cam, and a lot of people really could find this one difficult to sit through, even though it's only an hour and a quarter long. Other problems are the extreme parallax in shots like this, which mean that you can't really hope to resolve this in 3D. So this shot is no more three-dimensional than if you hold your hand a few inches from your face, when your left and right eye views are going to be so different that any sense of 3D is lost. The other sort of problem that occurs several times is when a blob of water or blood or something else that we might see later hits just one lens. And that's the kind of thing that Hollywood films go out of their way to avoid, and post-conversion obviously not only removes the problem, but it makes a positive out of it by placing the blob into 3D space. But these guys just press on gung-ho, sometimes for tens of seconds, and if it makes it feel like you've got something in one of your eyes, then maybe you're not paying enough attention to the zombie that's probably lurking around the next corner. And when I say this is super strong 3D, I'm generally talking about the views being incredibly deep. That's to say stretched far beyond their natural appearance, rather than lots of stuff coming out of the screen. There are times when that's exactly what does happen though, like this crowbar that's been popped into a zombie's head juts back out at us nicely. There are a couple of glorious moments when old Patrick takes off the camera rig and puts it down, like here, and it's almost overwhelming to get a static shot for a change. It's a huge relief on your senses not to have that persistent wobbly POV shot, and one which, like they all too often are, is not the exact view that you'd want. You frequently want them to aim the camera just maybe a little bit higher. Unfortunately, in this rare moment of respite, the 3D could still play havoc with your senses, because almost straight away some smoke wafts in front of the cameras, and it comes so close that it causes another bit of extreme disparity which doesn't fuse too well in your brain. When I said that view down the girl's top earlier told you all you need to know about the style of filmmaking, that maybe wasn't the full story, as it's actually this moment which offers a piece of 3D that might make you want to take a shower. That's to say, a second shower, because when he says he needs to take a leak, you at first think, surely not, but then he does, right in your face, in a streak of 3D that's equally funny and stomach-turning not just because of the strong 3D this time. I've said before that I think 3D can have the effect of heightening your other senses, and in this moment you can almost taste it. I did mention that this is a German film. So just a very quick word about the film itself. I don't want to criticise this one at all, as it's made by guys having some fun with extreme 3D on a tiny budget. It doesn't waste too much of your time, and it's sometimes quite good fun. I'm not sure at what point in pop culture zombie Nazis became a genre of their own, but it feels like they've been around for a few decades now, and here they are in this exploration of an old World War II bunker. The film has a sort of big reveal, or at least it would be if A, they didn't show it in the opening few moments of the film before taking the story back to earlier events, and B, it wasn't on the cover of the box, and C, it wasn't a completely obvious thing to do in the first place. But anyway, it's quite fun to see. Maybe not exactly satire of the character on a par with Chaplin's The Great Dictator, but a mockery of a monster nonetheless. I thought some of the gunshot effects were surprisingly good for such a cheapie, and the location was nice too. The version I watched was dubbed. I don't think I could have coped with the shaky strong 3D as well as subtitles, but anyway, character and dialogue were also quite a long way from Hollywood too. Overall, fair play to Matthias Eich, which is amusingly translated to Matthew Oak in the credits, for making this 3D movie. I'd definitely recommend it to hardcore 3D fans. Approach it with a bit of caution, and I think you could have some fun with it. So I hope you found this in some way useful, and if so, I hope you'll join me again soon for another 3D Blu-ray review. Until then, thanks for looking in on this one. Cheers for now. Bye-bye.